It also dawned on me that among top scientists, the majority view rejected the consensus that Al Gore and the UN claims exists. Yet the press states over and over again that there is a consensus. They have evidence, too, of this consensus. The 2,000 or 2,500 scientists associated with the UN reports that get issued every 6 years or so with great fanfare. This figure, 2,000 or 2,500 scientists, is the foundation on which the press has been basing its claims that there is a consensus on climate change. We see that time and time again, those figures of 2,000 or 2,500. The press feels that 2,500 scientists can't be wrong. I wondered who exactly those 2,500 scientists were. So to find out, I contacted the Secretariat of the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and asked for their names and contact information. The answer that came back was negative. I learned that the names were not public, so I couldn't have them. And I learned that those 2,500 people were reviewers. They weren't endorsers. Those scientists hadn't endorsed anything. They were merely people who had reviewed one or more of the literally hundreds of input studies, background studies. Some of them were important studies, some not, and they all fed into this gigantic maw in the United Nations bureaucratic process. Those scientists all would have reviewed just some small part of the final product, if any at all. They didn't review that final product or endorse it. Their reviews weren't even all favorable. I know that from many sources, including from among some of the scientists that I profiled, who consider the United Nations work a travesty, and who feel that their comments, their reviews, were ignored by the United Nations. So there is no endorsement by 2,500 top UN scientists. The press has been taken. It's been taken in by a big lie. This big lie has been told to us for 15 years now. In the early 1990s, Al Gore was saying that the science was settled on climate change. He was saying this at the same time that a Greenpeace poll came out showing that the majority of scientists disagreed with Gore. Gore said this 15 years ago, and he's been saying it ever since. And through a coincidence of many factors, the big lie took hold. Temperatures did indeed climb. Dramatic weather did occur. In the background, the public's general concern for the environment became widespread. Also in the background, Gore worked the United Nations system. It paid off big. In the late 1980s, Gore encouraged the United Nations to hold what would become the world's biggest conference on the environment, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. And then he encouraged the U.S. to get behind the conference. And that enabled the United Nations General Assembly to endorse it in 1989. Then Gore helped shape the agenda for the conference. And he did wonders in publicizing it. And he even convinced a very reluctant President Bush, the first President Bush, to attend the conference, to be there with the other world leaders to make the conference a success. This was 1992, the date of the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, also known as the Rio Conference. And that's the conference that spawned the Kyoto Protocol a few years later. Gore worked the system, and it paid off big. He got everyone to sing from the same hymn book. An unprecedented number of environmental groups attended Rio. My organization was among them. And that helped give the conference moral authority and helped create a sense of inevitability. An unprecedented number of world leaders attended Rio as well, giving the conference an official stamp and also putting the world's governments on record. And an unprecedented number of media outlets attended to report on this juggernaut. Picture yourself in, or as Al Gore, in the middle of all this. He had believed since his university days that man-made global warming was threatening the planet, and now here was vindication in the form of the world's environmental groups, the world's political leaders, all under the United Nations auspices. They were all there endorsing his view. If you were him, would you not feel vindicated? Might you not believe that you had been right all along, maybe even that you had a mission to fulfill, a mission that was greater than yourself? In that setting, at Rio, the science truly was settled. It's easy to see how Gore's mind would become formed in the belief that there must be no backsliding. No one must question that the science was settled. The science was so clear that man is responsible for climate change that nothing else could be contemplated, not even by the UN's own agency, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The mandate of this agency was and is to investigate man-made climate change. Other causes of climate change, the sun, cosmic forces, or natural phenomena, those were ruled out. No need to look at anything except man-made causes. And with only man-made causes looked at, is it any surprise that only man-made causes were found? This UN environmental bubble explains in part, I believe, how Gore can maintain that credible scientists don't exist in any number. It explains in part why earlier this month on 60 Minutes, when asked by Leslie Stahl about those who deny global warming, he answered, "It's a tiny, tiny minority."